that's a terrible word, the sort of activities that are associated with what happens before dinner and after dinner, meaning in the home, meaning whether it's watching television or kind of hanging around mom's apron springs in the kitchen, getting a little, tidbit to eat or whatever. But when you eat out, and the Ramseys were eating out quite often, as I say, every second or third day at Buster J's.
Right.
That's kind of lost because now it's kind of a more formal situation. The children have got to be better behaved. And you get what I'm kind of getting at in that sense. So in this episode, I do want to talk about access graphics on its own merit.
I don't get what you're getting at. I don't. There's an element of what you're saying is that, you're mentioning what you're trying to get at is the negative effects that, going out to eat and not really having that cohesive family unit can have on children. That's what you're trying to get at, I think. But you haven't closed the gap into how this has to do anything with access graphics and John's part being out of the home. Because I would argue this is what I would argue. Because I argue this, my dad, was a businessman and he was a minister. My dad spent a lot of time away from the home. And, I'd ask my mom, why is that always going this and that? That didn't make me feel a certain type of way about my brothers, right? That had nothing to do with my brothers or whatnot, because we were all in the same boat. Number one. Number two, going out to somewhere like, maybe some of you guys might remember a place for pizza like Mr. Gatti's or something like that. I would love that because that would give me a chance to play video games and do whatever that, just brought everything back. I ain't even, I would be like, yo, my dad would drop us off to school. And he's like, as long as, Dad would always take a long time to pick us up. Yo, we'd come out the front and everybody would be the first to leave. It's like Dad would be rolling up late, but as long as he took us to get ice cream at McDonald's and stuff like that, and then everything would be fine, I would look forward to that. So I wouldn't hold that against my mom and dad. But I'm trying to understand the family dynamic and what access graphics has to do, or anything with Lockheed Martin. What does that have to do with pushing Burke? That's what I'm looking for, with pushing Burke against JonBenét, or with something happening to JonBenét. Where are the negative effects that are happening to JonBenét to where we would see the situation that we're seeing now?
And we'll get to that in a second. Before we do, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please do. You can click on the icon on the bottom, blue icon on the bottom right of your screen. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So
this is True Crime Rocket Science, by the way. So you know who it is.
This is a very big subject, and it's very difficult to know where to start, where to begin, and what tip of the iceberg to sort of start covering, if I can put it that way. So I think I'm just going to start it in general terms, in terms of the timeline, and just say, okay, so on the 20th of December, so just 5 days before what happened to JonBenét happened, this is now very much coming into the critical red zone of the timeline. In other words, whatever factors were in play that were going to lead to the events of Christmas Day, obviously the night of Christmas Day, very close to midnight, in fact, of Christmas Day, those events were now crystallizing into something. So in other words, those dynamics are already there, but now in the last 5 days, the screws of those conveyor belts of those dynamics are strengthening, they're tightening, the trajectory is becoming absolutely certain, right? And so one of the things that happened on December 20th was $1 billion luncheon at the Hotel Boldorado, right? And so what happens there, that is where John Ramsey spends the day. Now, if we just take that day in isolation, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to look at one day in isolation and say, what were the broad implications of that day?
Right.
So first of all, let's bear in mind what day of the week it was. It was a Friday, okay? So it was 24 years ago today, a Friday.
Mm-hmm. I've seen this before. I just want to make sure as I'm seeing it again, what I'm seeing. And the first time I was wondering why the pillow was down, that Beauty and the Beast pillow. That's what I was struggling with. Is that a pillow or what is that? But I was struggling to understand why that's down at the foot of the bed. If you laid her in bed, why is a pillow at the foot of the bed if an intruder came in and took her out of the bed, if she ever made it to the bed? Why is that pillow down at the foot of the bed? Anybody would have put her down at the right side of the bed, at the headboard. So why is that pillow down there? That seems like somebody took something and moved it. That's why I questioned whether she ever made it back to that bed. You know, you got this sweater here on the edge of the bed, right in front of the Beauty and the Beast pillow, right? Seems like somebody was trying on clothes. You got an article of clothing right there at the foot of the bed. Somebody's trying on clothes and throwing it. There's a 6-year-old young lady. And so Patsy's coming in and helping her get dressed, or she's dressing herself and she's throwing things all over the place. You know, this looks like it's very messy. So I'm confused. Did she ever make it back to this bed? Because I'm not going to lie. This looks like my niece's room when my niece was this age.
And that makes sense that that Access Graphics on this Friday would have kind of a big party so that you could I don't think they would have the party and then go back to work. I think they would have the party. It would probably go on until possibly quite late in the afternoon, even into the evening. I don't know. But something like $1 billion turnover is a huge milestone. And the article in the Daily Camera the very next day kind of starts off with exactly those words. It's written by Tom Locke, and he says it's written for the very next morning, but dealing with the day before. It starts off, $1 billion. That's enough to make anybody celebrate. And I want to put those terms into perspective, into context. If you had a business and it had made $1 billion in turnover, wouldn't you want to celebrate? Now, what I can tell you is, quite recently, I wrote my 100th book, and I'm nowhere near $1 billion in turnover, let alone $1 million, right? But what I can tell you is, reaching that number 100 was quite a big deal for me. And I wouldn't say I had a party, but I certainly went to some friends. We had a barbecue. We had a couple of drinks, and we kind of raised a toast and said, to the work that we've done. And it went on for a couple of hours. There weren't fireworks and it wasn't that elaborate, but it was kind of a big deal. And now, how much bigger a deal would it be if it's $1 billion and it's not just one person, but it's hundreds? And, it's sort of shared success. And so that is exactly what happened. It was quite a big party. It was a luncheon at a hotel on a Friday.
Right.
A Dixieland jazz band was there. And so was obviously John Ramsey, the president of Access Graphics. And he thanked about 300 employees at the gathering. And he sort of thanked them and said, I couldn't have done it without you. And this $1 billion in sales was a 25% increase over the 800 million Access Graphics posted the previous year. So there was a 25% increase in, whether you want to say turnover or profit. I'm not sure if it was necessarily profit, but the point being that this company was growing. And How does a company grow? Well, through hard work, through meetings, through networking, through business trips, through knuckling down and getting things done. When a company is growing, people tend to be working hard, and we all know that the computer industry was really exploding in the middle 90s. I mean, what we take for granted now was rolling out across the planet at that time, right? And a lot of this kind of growth was
I don't know where he's going with this. I'm going to hang with him. I'm going to hang with my boy. But I don't know where he's going with this. Just going to state that for the record. I don't know where he's going with this. Because yes, the computer industry was booming, and I think about that often. We're approaching Y2K. We're just getting into computers in that way to where, you're getting the PCs and you're getting the PC wars and all such as that with the Macs and the Microsofts. And, I get all that. I'm with all that. For sure. Definitely taking John's time up, and he was entrepreneur of the year, we know that, and he was a big guy in town, and so that would put a target on his back. I would think that would put a target on his back. We know this guy has money, and so that would pull ire from people. Maybe you got too much money, or maybe just some shuffling in the company, and maybe setting the stage for the intruder theory or something like that, or an intruder, or maybe not even intruder, but like somebody close to the family that's a Judas. That could be, they're having their eye on JonBenét, but it's like, why are we skipping Burke and going to JonBenét? Maybe because JonBenét was the clear favorite, as people saw. I don't know.
Internet fueled. So the internet was kind of creating a market for people to want computers, right? It's a funny thing, because the computers were making the internet happen, but it was also working vice versa. And I did mention somewhere that when the JonBenét Ramsey case happened, Shirley Brady, ex-housekeeper, she ran kind of an internet page, and at that time, Silver Surfers were literally buying computers so that they could participate in this sort of Ramsey spectacle that was happening online. It's arguably the very first major true crime case that really inundated the internet, right? The case that sort of preceded it was the O.J. Simpson trial, and that was a television trial, if that makes sense. And another case that was also very high profile was Scott Peterson, was also kind of televised, and that is why it was such a big deal. So anyway, the point being that this was a very big party, and it was based on incredible sales, and this was a time to celebrate that. It was kind of like the last, how can I put it? You've reached the end of the year, and now you want to kind of put up and the end of the week, and it's approaching Christmas. It's approaching holidays for the employees,
having your holiday
and
parties.
The employer, and and it's a time to sort of kick off your shoes, let your hair down, have a couple of drinks, and relax and just enjoy yourself.
So I guess this is on the other side. That bed is made up. So if I'm JonBenét or I'm Patsy and I'm getting dressed, I'm gonna have some stuff on my bed that I sleep on, but I lay. It's like living in a hotel room, or being in a hotel room, and it's like I got two queens, and so I lay my clothes on the other one. She's got a doll up there. That bed doesn't get touched, other than the fact that I just lay clothes over the top. Okay.
Right? And in a situation like that, you could say, well, if there were problems at home, would you be dealing with them? Would you know about them? What would you be focusing on? And there's nothing, it's a little bit like me.
Why is that pillow down there? Is that a pillow? Why is a pillow on the kitchen counter?
Going to celebrate my books scenario, and I leave my dog at home. And I didn't actually. I took my dog along. But all I'm saying is, you could justify that, and you could probably say, no, well, that's understandable. I can understand you leaving your dog at home and going to a barbecue and enjoying yourself. But the thing that I'm just trying to emphasize in a gentle, reasonable, straightforward way is just to say that anyone would want to celebrate this, and wouldn't you then be distracted from something else that is maybe also deserving of your attention, but certainly shouldn't you be celebrating something like this anyway? Does that make sense? If we just stay on this news report for a moment longer, at the milestone party, John was saying, he expects to reach another billion in revenues, in other words, 2 billion. And he was saying he expected that before the end of the decade, and that was a certainty. And so that was where John Ramsey stood at that time. He recognized this incredible potential of the company that he'd built. He was enjoying incredible success, and he absolutely knew that he could rely on that success going forward. Of course, the thing that he didn't know was what was about to happen. 5 days from now, that was going to turn his kind of business fairy tale on its head, right? The other thing that the article states is that he reached the $1 billion mark relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. So if you think about the fact that the company was formed in 1989 and they reached $1 billion in around about 6 years, that's quite incredible. And it's basically 3 companies that became Access Graphics, basically, as far as, if I'm reading this right, CAD Distributors, CAD Sources, and Advanced Products Group of Roswell, Georgia. And that's the company that John Ramsey sort of started. In 1990, Access posted 59 million in sales and had 120 employees. Revenues grew 1,600%. Employment has grown 358%, and so on. And we're going to get to this in a second, but what's, I think, one of the most underestimated aspects of the JonBenét Ramsey case is this little known fact, this little expressed fact. Access Graphics was a wholly owned subsidiary of the Bethesda, Maryland-based Lockheed Martin Corporation.
Right.
And through these relationships, Access Graphics had an important mix of products and companies that it represented, including Hewlett-Packard. Does that name ring a bell? Sun Microsystems, Silicon Graphics, and so on.
I remember hearing that, yes.
And so this allowed his company to dip into a much bigger pond, right? So if we come back to the timeline, so at the same time that John Ramsey is having this big luncheon, obviously the press are present. The press are, taking a photo of him, enjoying his success, and so on. And there are a couple of photos. At the same time, they are writing an article about everything. And this is where you could say, did this article in the media prick somebody's conscience? Did somebody see this? And what is quite interesting is at the crime scene, someone had drawn a picture or kind of put, I can't quite remember exactly what it was, but there was a picture of John Ramsey. I don't know if it was the Entrepreneur of the Year picture, and someone had drawn something around his face. And you could argue, was it a child that did that, or was it some kind of some kind of criminal person? But why on earth would you do that and then take the magazine into the home? Now, why on earth would you?
Now, this is wild. This is wild. Patsy is wearing that as an adult, but you got your child. I'm just saying, I don't know pageant moms like that. You know, y'all do what y'all do. But as for me, man, that looks like an adult fit. You know what I mean? And maybe at this point in time that what JonBenét is wearing this, times have changed. You know, I'm just saying that seems like, and look, I'm whatever people do in pageants, I'm not here to judge that. Do I think things are a little bit risque at times, stuff like this? I do, but you know, I'm also not trying to look at this little girl like that. So, I mean, she's 6. I'm not trying to look at her like that. So it's just like, man, I probably wouldn't put my daughter in like that, in nothing like that. But I mean, I can respect you if you do. I mean, that's your kid. So, and you say that you know pageants, you know this space. So, I mean, I can't really get on you, but I mean, I maybe wouldn't do it, you know.
Identify someone
And the point,
and then take the magazine with you into the house, kind of thing. So, also on December the 20th, Bill
I just didn't personally want to continue to stare at JonBenét half naked. That's just me. Not saying anything about anybody. I'm just saying I didn't want to do it. But the point I was going to say about, you know, John Ramsey, I think he was trying to make a point about John being a target now that he's going for $2 billion. And somebody seeing that and say, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? I might be trying to. If that was the case, then we would see evidence. Like there would be a flow. We could see that. We could shoot that down and look down the line and be, okay, there is a flow of somebody upset that John, and if John is making all this money, number one. Number two, if it was really, because you got to remember, they only asked for $118,000. This man, if I'm looking in the news and I see that this man is going for $2 billion, we've already made a billion. He's going for $2 billion. You think I'm going to be asking for $118,000 and I'm going to be asking for $100,000 in big bills and $18,000 in small bills? I'm a foreign faction. Why would I be asking for small pennies in the news? They telling me this man made $1 billion. And I know you're not getting the full $1 billion, but you're getting 28 million. You're getting enough to buy a 4-story home in Colorado with an elevator. And your wife don't have to work. And you got a plane. So you must have had time to get your pilot's license and buy the plane. You had to have money. So I know you're making money. I'm going for the big bucks, bro. And you dang sure know I ain't about to fumble no bag, because I'm going in and and I know that JonBenét is close to your heart. You know I'm not going in to fumble no bag. Why would I do that? That's my ticket to $500 to $1 million. I'm asking for 10 million because I know he's good for it. So when I go and pick this girl up, and I'm taking her out of the house, hey, I'm ready. Would no rookie come in and just be like, you know what? I'm going for $10 million. I'm just going to wing it. You know what? I'm going to ask for the least amount. I'm not going to ask for no money. If I know this much about John Ramsey, I'm not even going to ask for no money. Like, I'm going to ask for $118,000. When you know he's making $1 billion, he's going for $2 billion. You would only ask for $118,000. That doesn't make sense. That's when I said this had to be the most expert rookie I ever know, because an expert would ask for more money. So I know you're a rookie doing this, but you don't leave no fingerprints. That's an expert. How clever? Impossible for you to be that smart and that dumb to where I go in. I don't ask for no money. I don't take the bag with me. When I say the bag, I'm talking about JonBenét. I don't get the girl out the house to go with me. Yet, I don't leave my fingerprints on things. Yet, I'm so elusive that can't nobody find me. Yet, my footprints ain't found nowhere. Yet, can't no dogs find me. Okay.
Bill McReynolds, was sort of recruited into a Christmas party that was going to take place 3 days later. Now, if I can read between the lines, so in the the book the Ramseys wrote, they kind of have it that Bill McReynolds called Patsy and said, "Hey, I'd like there to be a Christmas party. Will you organize one and I'll be there," kind of thing. Right? That's kind of how it's presented. I don't think that is how it happened. I think how it happened was I'm not sure if Patsy was even present at this party, but I kind of get the feeling that she wanted to participate in the parties. She wanted to also celebrate John's success, but in a different format. So not...
I was laughing because JonBenét's hands are so little, and we just got back from Texas, and my brother just got married, and we were sitting down at the table with my oldest brother. We were sitting down at the table with my oldest brother and his kids, and myself and my wife and my brother and my twin and his wife, and we were sitting down with them, and we're just going around the table, and we were making fun of my niece and my nephew. We were going back, and we were showing my sister-in-law, my newest sister-in-law. We were showing pictures of my niece and my nephew, and we were talking about how little they were. And my niece was so embarrassed. She was like, "Okay, now you can." And she's like, I think she's like 13 now, 13, 14, something like that. And she was like, "Okay, you can put that away now. Stop embarrassing me," and stuff like that. And so, man, it's just funny. Like, JonBenét's hands were so little. And I remember pulling up my niece playing piano and how she was so little, man. I think she was like 3 or 4 at the time, but she was so little. So that's a little funny, man. And it's crazy. I mention it because it just really humanizes what we're talking about. This was a legitimately real human being. This was a 6-year-old that, like, my God, what happened? When we're playing games, but what happened to this 6-year-old? Did this 6-year-old even see it coming? Did she know what was about to happen? Did she know what was going on? Did she know what was the mindset of this 6-year-old? Like, how mature was she? Did she even see it coming? How did she feel when whatever happened? You know what I mean? That's the stuff I think about sometimes. And that's what's so sad and so crazy, because this was a human being, a smart, intelligent, young human being who had a full life ahead of her. Man, who knows if she would have grown up and went on America's Next Top Model and won and slayed it. Or she would have grown up and stayed in the pageant space and become Miss America or Miss Colorado, and gone to college and married a nice gentleman or whoever. You see what I'm saying? Like, who knows? But for something like that to something like that to shut it down, and for so many things to be preventing us from figuring out what happened, is just crazy.
Not like at this hotel, but kind of at their home, and kind of have stacks of people over and just toast their success, not just John's, hers as well, and JonBenét's as well. Have this sort of big party just to celebrate the Ramseys are here. We are kind of taking names, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if Patsy called Bill McReynolds and not the other way around. Anyway, the official story is that Patsy said, "I didn't plan to have a family Christmas party in 1996. Really?" This is Patsy we're talking about. Someone who loves pageantry, who loves parties, who loves dressing up, who loves pageantry just in general. And according to her, she didn't even want to have a family Christmas party at all.
Okay.
But she did because Bill McReynolds called her on the 20th, on that same day. And his story was that someone was doing a TV program, and it was going to be in Boulder, and would be filming him as Santa, and he wanted to include her party in the filming. And so he strongly encouraged her to have the event. So what is quite strange here is, in her story, Bill already knows about the party. So it seems like there was a party going on anyway. Anyway, So that was what was going on at the same time as this luncheon, right? I don't know whether Patsy attended the luncheon. I don't see any pictures of her there. But one thing we know for sure was where JonBenét was. And probably where JonBenét was, wasn't that where Patsy was. The other side of the story is that I don't think John could have been where JonBenét was that day because he was at this luncheon. I mean, that's just a simple explanation for he wasn't where she was because he was busy with his things and she was busy with her things. And where was she? Well, she was doing a performance. Now, previously, I think I did mention that on the 17th, that was her last pageant. Actually, that's not accurate. She gave another pageant on the 22nd, and we'll deal with that in the episode after the next one. I think I must do a part 2 to this episode, just talking a little bit more about Access Graphics. But let me just end off with JonBenét's performance doing Rock Around the Clock at the High Peaks Elementary School. So this was kind of the last thing that JonBenét did in terms of school. I don't know whether she went to school after this, but it was also, bear in mind, it's a Friday and the kids want to be sort of sent off towards their weekend and maybe their holidays. And so JonBenét is giving them a performance for that as well. Now, she's just given a performance 3 days earlier. And 3 days earlier, Patsy called the doctor 3 times because something happened. We don't quite know what happened. Anyway, let's deal with December the 30th. And this is from a posting on websleuths.com. While the Access Graphics buffet was taking place at the Hotel Boldorado, JonBenét and Patsy were at JonBenét's school where JonBenét was performing Rock Around the Clock for the students. And JonBenét had to prepare for that. JonBenét had to prepare that performance. So while a lot of her other friends had just homework to worry about and had whatever to worry about, JonBenét had these she was like performing for her schoolmates to worry about. And that's just another thing just to bear in mind is, so think about what it was like for all the other school kids. All the other school kids are kind of normal kids doing their normal thing. And here is a little girl dressed up in this fancy way, almost like a celebrity, made up, dolled up, hair dyed, performing for them. And what are the little children going to be thinking? What are the little girls going to be thinking when they see her performing? What are the boys going to be thinking when they see her performing? It's just another context to maybe think about in terms of this case. If some of the children have good things to say, how is that going to make JonBenét's brother feel? If some of the boys have bad things to say, how is that going to make other people feel about this? How's JonBenét going to feel about it? One thing I don't think you can get away from is that JonBenét was directing a lot of attention to herself and also John Ramsey at that time and also Patsy Ramsey at that time. Am I leaving anyone out? Okay, I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next episode, I will be doing kind of a part 2 on Access Graphics, just going through a little bit more information. I also will take you through Patsy Ramsey's newsletter for the family dealing with the Christmas of 1996. She wrote one just about every year, and so we're going to look at the newsletter and also the handwriting in the newsletter. Thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.
So that is, I didn't get as much information as I wanted to out of that one with Access Graphics. That's basically what I've seen already. So of course I'm going to do my own analysis. Just talk through it with you guys. Some stuff that I've been kind of looking up on my own, trying to understand a little bit more about the impact of Access Graphics and the importance of who John is, possibly, and just kind of work through it. So that's the video. We'll jump out and jump right back in. But until next video, take it easy.